Hello there. Thank you for staying tuned to Citizen TV on this 15th day of March 2021. My name is Sam Gituku, and just in time for the conversation that we want to look at what's making headlines in different papers, as well as what is informing public conversations in the country. And I want to start by introducing one Aidan Kenan, Member of Parliament for Elders, but he's also the Joint Secretary of the Jubilee Parliamentary Group. Good morning.
Good morning, viewers.
And welcome back. It's been almost a year since we last had you here in studio.
Asante, karibu.
Yeah, so then we also have Senator Moses Kajwang of Homa Bay. He tells me that he is in Bita constituency. Good morning, Senator. Right, as we wait to hear from Senator, we also have Caleb Kositanyi, who is the Member of Parliament for Soy constituency in Wasin Gishu County. There they are, the two gentlemen there. They'll be helping us look at what's informing conversations, but also expecting one Dan Manzo from Makueni constituency in Makueni County. As soon as he's able to join us, he'll be joining us on set. But let's begin by looking at what is on the two dailies. On the front page of the Daily Nation is the new fuel prices shock Kenyans, and this month's increase is one of the highest in 10 years since 2011. That's what the Nation is reporting, and this is stress for families as steep rise in cost of petroleum products announced yesterday will push up the cost of transport, electricity and manufactured goods, adding pain to Kenyans already suffering from the impact of COVID-19 on the economy. Of course, this is what affects Kenyans directly, raising the cost of living at a time that inflation has also been going up. And then you have to look at the front page of the Standard. The main story there is power behind the deep state. The Interior Principal Secretary Kibicho has been in the eye of a storm after ODM demanded his removal, accusing him of meddling in BBI politics. He is not the first holder of this office, of this powerful office, to face political blows. So why is this position loved and loathed in equal measure? That's the question that is on the Standard. But also on your screen is the story on the Daily Nation, where Jubilee fires a warning shot at Ruto. And gentlemen, let me begin by looking at that question about the pump prices, because for the past 4 or so months, the pump prices have gone up by about 17 shillings for super petrol. And Honorable Kenan, do we have sufficient reason why this is happening? Because you keep being told of landing costs has gone up, we're being told about the exchange rates are also going up, but Kenyans now having to pay 122 shillings a litre of petrol in Nairobi. Honorable Kenan?
Yes, I think generally the global oil market, actually, crude oil market has been going down. And therefore, this frequent fuel prices increase without sufficient explanation, in my opinion, is unacceptable. And therefore, this particular organization actually owes Kenyans an explanation why the global oil market has been going down steadily over the last 1 year, and yet the fuel market price in Kenya has been going up. This is inconsistent, this is unacceptable, and Kenyans actually require a plausible explanation from this particular organization. We will not be paying for the inefficiencies of public entities, and therefore this should be rescinded, should be revisited, and especially coming at a time when Kenyans are really struggling with the economic crisis as a result of the COVID pandemic and other challenges. This should be rescinded, and therefore fuel prices should remain as they were. This is my take.
Right, and Senator Kajwang, looking at this, because again, 17 shillings in about 4 months, and the cost continues to go up. The EPRA, or is it double RA, has just been reporting about this. Do you think they are keeping with their mandate in regulating the cost of energy in the country? And when Kenyans feel this pinch, where do they run to now?
Well, some exercise of mandate must be short. We are in the response of COVID. We are third wave. We have a lot of suffering. Remember, at the beginning of the pandemic, there was a stimulus fund. It had some fiscal elements that had tax breaks for persons who are on employment, that had action in the cost of doing business. And then, unfortunately, about 10 months later, the government decided to waive or to write off all those waivers and all those fiscal stimulus packages. Today, in the throes of a third wave, it is immoral and it is extremely poor timing for EPRA, which is a government agency, to increase fuel prices, knowing very well how COVID has decimated the fortune of Kenyans. Even if EPRA was saying that it has a mandate, that mandate cannot be applied in a vacuum. This is a time when the government must do everything to ensure that there's some fiscal relief for Kenyans. We have seen entire industries that have been brought to their knees. Even the transport industry has not recovered. Remember, we still have social distancing rules in matatus, in school buses. We still have challenges in the hospitality sector. And some of them even have to use generators to ensure that they have appropriate electricity. So this timing is wrong. It is an action that makes the government appear as if it is insensitive to the needs of the people. Already, Party ODM has put out a statement castigating that increase. And I do believe that this matter will find its way in Parliament when Parliament reconvenes in the next 1 week. We support the government in many ways, but we cannot take a position of supporting a matter that is going to hurt Kenyans even more. Kenyans who are not only hurt, but are dying because of COVID.
And yet, Honorable Kositanyi, I hear Honorable Kenan telling us that the price of crude oil has been going down. But if you have to look at the statistics provided by EPRA, it shows that in March 2020, the crude oil prices were at $35 a barrel, but now they're at $61 a barrel. That's according to February 2021. And so they're saying that the change in cost between Feb and March of the landed cost is about 14%. So is it justifiable? Because if you have to do your calculation, then it comes to about 50 shillings a litre of crude oil. But when all these other costs are put together, then it rises to 122. Do you think it's justifiable for this increment?
Well, Sam, it's not justifiable at all, considering that we are going through international, worldwide pandemic, and considering that the last increase, as you have said, was just barely a month ago. Within a month, we have increased 17 shillings per litre. The biggest problem, I think, is the government is not sitting down and planning properly, because the taxes, Sam, that are on road fuel, I think of the 122 shillings, I think the government takes about 40 or 50 shillings in terms of taxes here and there. So I think the best thing would have been for government to reduce the taxes it takes so that the fuel prices remain the same. From where I sit, Sam, I'm in farming. Our main business here in Eldoret is farming. And the cost of right now, farmers are going to plant. You have budgeted for diesel at the price, the previous price, and then now you're being told it's 120 something shillings per litre. That really disorganizes your financial planning for this planting season. And with that also, an increase of fuel will go, everything will increase. The cost of transport, the cost of food, everything will go up. So I think really the government should consider drastically reducing the taxes that they tax on the fuel so that we can get fuel in Kenya at a cheaper rate. I don't think there's any country that is taxed on high in terms of fuel the way Kenyans are.
Right, I've just been looking at the prices depending on where you are joining us from, and I'm seeing that in Bita, Senator Kajwang will be paying for super petrol at 124 shillings 16 cents. Let me just see how much your constituents will pay for diesel. It will be
123.
Well, for Mbita, it's 124.16 cents. Then for diesel, it will be 109.26 shillings, and for kerosene, it's 99.48 shillings. I was hoping that I would find Eldas or Wajir on this, but as I look at this, so do we have any? What can Kenyans do? Because I mean, the prices are set; you have to pay for them. There'll be impact on the price of electricity, but also on the basic cost of living. So what can Kenyans do at such a time, Honorable Kenan?
I think Kenyans have a functioning and working government. I think the message is very clear. The timing is wrong. This is immoral. Kenyans are already struggling with the pandemic crisis, and you know, it's an open secret that Kenyans are struggling right now with their basic issues, and therefore adding to this, will just grind the economy to a halt. And therefore, in my opinion, and I believe the government, wherever they are, the government has agencies. This is one of the government agencies. There's the Ministry for Energy, the other regulatory agencies. I believe everybody in the system is hearing this. The timing is totally wrong. I agree. It's not a party issue. It's not an individual issue. This is a matter of national interest. The government should come in and subsidize and ensure that this recent and justified increment is rescinded, notwithstanding the global other global issues. And therefore, let's see how this pandemic actually, right now, because we have the vaccine which is going on, let's see how this thing goes on. And I believe at an appropriate time, these agencies will sit down, look at the global market, look at the local economic scenario, and come up with what will add value to the well-being of every Kenyan. Otherwise, for now, whatever the circumstances, this should be rescinded, this should be cancelled as a matter of national interest. And this is what we're asking the Minister for Energy, other regulatory agencies, and the government in totality to come to the rescue of Kenya, because this is not acceptable at all. I'm in the government, this is not acceptable. Kenyans can't afford this. And basically, it's going to grind the economy to halt. So whatever austerity measures we have been talking about will be negated by this, because almost all sectors depend on this particular industry, the oil industry. And therefore, coming up with this at this particular time, when the government has been trying to resuscitate the different sectors of the economy,
right,
is unjustifiable, immoral, and as a matter of national interest, the government should rescind this decision.
Right, and I've actually gotten the prices for Wajir, your home county, and super petrol will be 132 shillings 7 cents. For diesel, it's 116 shillings 92 cents, and for kerosene, it's 107 shillings 10 cents. So you can only imagine how much of an impact that will be, especially for people that depend on kerosene for cooking fuel. But Honorable Caleb Kositanyi, last night or last evening, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. tweeted saying that Kenyans deserve an explanation on the rise of fuel prices by the energy regulator. And a lot of Kenyans have been commenting about it, and some saying that if Kenyans are complaining and now the leaders join in the complaining, is there anything specific that Parliament can do to intervene, especially on such regulations that, of course, once announced on 14th of every month, then they take effect on the midnight of that day. So already, if you have to go to the pump station right now in Eldoret, you'll pay the 123 shillings. Anything the Parliament can do?
Well, I think we are on recess, and as Senator Kajwang has clearly put it, when we resume next week on Tuesday, I think that is going to be one of the top on the agenda of Parliament, that we discuss and come up with a way that we can cushion Kenyans. And the only way, as I had said earlier, Sam, is to reduce the take-home of government from the fuel, from the pump prices, because the cost of fuel is not expensive, but the cost of taxes, the taxes that the government gets from fuel, is actually very high. So we need government to give in and reduce on the taxes they take from the fuel pump.
But what would that do to the revenue being generated or being collected by government?
The government has to cut down on some projects that are not a matter of life and death. Government has to also cut down on its spending. We see cabinet ministers moving around with 3-4 vehicles with sirens all over the place. We have seen a lot. We see there's so much wastage in government. Government should even ask their members, all civil servants, to park all government vehicles. We need to actually to cut down on costs. And the only way, the biggest spender is actually the government. All this money goes into government, but we need to actually now finance specific projects that are actually very key, and forget about big mega projects that will consume all our money, will give a rise to our loan portfolio, so that then we are able to go through this pandemic, and then after that we can resume to the new normal. But as it is right now, government must reduce taxes.
Okay, all right. He says that government must reduce taxes. I don't know how practical that is, especially when it comes to revenue generation. Already, Parliament is considering the budget policy statement. We'll be waiting to see what comes out of that process in as far as the estimates on what the National Treasury hopes to collect as local revenue and borrowing from local and external market. But now there's another headline story, power behind the deep state. It's on the front page of the Standard, and they are accusing PS Kibicho He's said to be in the eye of a storm after ODM demanded his removal, accusing him of meddling in BBI politics. And they have given an analogy of different principal secretaries or permanent secretaries who have served in that office, including Francis Kimemia, Zakayo Cheruiyot, and Hezekiah Oyugi. Of course, many of them accused of meddling in national affairs. But when you're looking at it, is there any evidence, Senator Kajong? Of course, there was that conversation that was raised by your fellow senator, James Orengo from Siaya County. Is there any evidence that one interior PS has been meddling in matters in the management of BBI and other issues of national interest?
I would say that we have seen symptoms of interference in political matters by people who should be playing a purely administrative role. You do recall that even when we were seeking signatures for the BBI, because it was a political exercise, but also a government project, we saw the use of local or what we used to call provincial administrators, the chiefs and sub-chiefs, their involvement in mobilization for collection of signatures. Of course, it was alongside the political party agents. Now, moving to the next phase of even carrying out civic education and distribution of booklets so that Mwananchi can understand what BBI is all about, we are seeing a growing influence of the provincial administration in that duty, which is a purely political exercise. I think when it comes to educating the masses and convincing the masses on the good and bad of the BBI, that should be left to politicians like Caleb and I. Chiefs have got no role, they've got no position. Chiefs and DCs and county commissioners have got no role when it comes to a political conversation. We have also seen certain issues of frustration, like the secretariat of the BBI team, the one headed by Junet and Dennis Waweru, has virtually been disbanded. And that has been done through certain orders from that particular office. I think these are just symptoms. This, to me, does not paint the entire picture. My conviction is that the handshake is still strong because it was negotiated on genuine grounds. But there are actors who did not want the handshake to occur, even in the first place. I spoke about it over the weekend when I was talking to my people down here in Homa Bay, and I told them that the reason why Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta decided to do the handshake, just the two of them, with the involvement of just a few people. Indeed, the president told us that he informed the deputy president, and Raila Odinga informed a very small circle. But the reason why only the two of them went and shook hands and came up with an MOU is that on both sides there are hardliners who, if they had been carried into that negotiating room, the handshake would never have happened. And those hardliners are not just on the government side. Those hardliners are even on the ODM and the opposition side. So there are people who would have never accepted the handshake, and when it happened, they never accepted it, and even today, they do not accept it. I think if we focus on them, we will be missing the forest. We'll be seeing the trees for the forest.
Okay.
People like Kibicho, I think it is time now that they took a backseat and allowed this process to be political, because this matter is now in Parliament, and after Parliament, it will be the politicians to go and campaign for it and to convince people to vote yes.
But Senator, what exactly?
Let them let go, because now it is a purely political exercise.
But what exactly has the PS done? Because you've had so many allegations. I've asked you specific, and you're not committed on that. But what exactly has he done that you want him to step back?
I say the use of provincial administration at this point in the BBI exercise is unnecessary, because we have now crossed the bridge where this is now a purely political exercise. We can no longer have chiefs and county commissioners and regional commissioners and the entire security machinery involved in the BBI civic education and public participation process. This is now a political stop, because the assemblies have already approved it, Parliament is considering it, and these are political institutions. What I'm trying to say, and I don't want to delve into those other imaginary accusations of Kibichu, specifically over BBI. We just want him to cede this exercise to the political class so that Caleb can go and convince people in Soy not to vote for it. I can go and convince people in Homa Bay to vote for it without the use of provincial administration and the machinery of state.
Okay, all right. And Honorable Kenan, of course, the president is very keen on this project or this initiative, and he is the head of the executive. He has people that work under him. What role would the executive have in such a political process as Senator Kajwang describes it, knowing that the president functions through cabinet and his staff?
That's the point. I think, first of all, we need to familiarize ourselves with the history of this country, and in particular, those who work under the office of the presidency. From the colonial time to President Kenyatta's time, to Moi's time, to Kibaki, and finally, Uhuru. These officers actually, these are basically technical officers, and they enjoy delegated authority. Delegated authority from who? From the presidency. Sometimes if you look at it again, the history, even during the colonial time, these officers have always been used as a punching bag by the political class whenever there were differences, whether perceived or real. And I think let's call a spade a spade. The BBI process is a political process. These are officers who enjoy delegated authority from none other than the CEO of the Republic of Kenya. And therefore, I think what right now, the confusion that I see is the provisional administration. I remember in 2010, there was a debate as to whether there was need to have the provisional administration as part of our governance structure, or whether that function ought to have been transferred to the county government. I think right now we all realize that it will have been a fatal mistake if this function was transferred to the county government. You can imagine where we'll have been right now. Now, this being the case, and being part of our governance structure, I think what we need to do right now, let's not unnecessarily bash civil servants who are just executing their mandate. The issue of chiefs and assistant chiefs are part of our governance structure. If you look at the lowest level of, from the sublocation to this, they have a role to play in public administration. They have a role to play in maintenance of law and order. So I think one thing that I agree with Kajwang is this, that BBI is a political process, the politicians should drive. But equally, I don't agree the issue of whenever there is a mistake within the political class, we start hitting at the civil servants who have no platform actually to defend themselves. So I think let's agree that the BPI as a popular public initiative, which is a product of the handshake, which is going actually to the second last stage. Right now it is in Parliament, and I'm sure in the next few weeks it will be, or few months it will be to the public. That I entirely agree. Let the politicians drive that particular process. But equally, where there is differences, whether it's perception or whether it is real, let's discuss as politicians instead of hammering innocent civil servants who have no platform actually to defend themselves. So I think if we separate this, I can bet we'll have this process move on smoothly as anticipated, allow the civil servant to execute their mandates, the political class will also do their mandates, and where there are differences, there is somewhere where these issues can be sorted out. And in particular, I want to urge the politicians who believe, including myself in the handshake, if there is any difference, whether real or whatever, we have His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta, we have the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. These are our top leaders, and therefore let's resort to other mechanisms actually sorting out this instead of always complaining, instead of always hitting at civil servants, instead of always, that does not add. It only adds to the public suspicion that sometimes this particular PPI process actually is meant to achieve such a political.
So at the moment, you don't think that the members being referred to are guilty of any mistake?
What I'm trying to say is this. We have the public service structure. These particular office holders from Uyugi, I remember those days. You know the kind of accusations that used to be there. You remember the time of Kimemia, the kind of accusations that used to be there, even during the colonial time. This is because of the nature of and the mandate. These people are in charge of the police. These people are in charge of a number of the correctional services. These people are in charge of the national disaster. These people are in charge of so many things. They're the government. So generally, their work involves. They're in charge of the public administration. Their work involves a lot of issues that touch on the day-to-day lives of the people of Kenya. So naturally, they will be interrogated. They will be criticized. That is part of their work. But I think where there are political issues, my appeal to the political class, in particular for those of us who believe in the handshake, is where there will be issues. There will always be issues.
All right.
Let's resort to the acceptable channels, which is making reference to our heads, that is His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta and His Excellency Right Honorable Amolo Odinga, and that's where the issues actually can always be sorted out.
Okay.
But hammering technocrats who are out to execute their mandates, I don't think whether it will add any value at all.
Okay, and Honorable Caleb Kositanyi, of course we've seen some of complaints coming from your side of politics, but when you're talking about the totality of government and how the systems work, what would you place the responsibility and the role of civil service, and especially senior civil servants, at when it comes to the conversations like what's happening with the BBI, the politics, bearing in mind that the president or the presidency is made up of politicians, yet they achieve what they want to achieve through the secretariat, quote unquote, which is the civil service?
Well, Sam, it's interesting listening to my colleagues trying to complain about the involvement of the civil servants in this process. What we need, first of all, to agree is that this BBI process is a unique process. It's a process that started with two people, a handshake between two people. One is the CEO of the country, one was meant to be the leader of the opposition, and a role that he has abdicated and joined in to work with government, which is not a problem. But the biggest problem here is you cannot separate the president's duties from the civil servants, and Kainan has clearly put it there, that they work under delegated responsibilities delegated by the CEO of the country, who is President Uhuru Kenyatta, who is the owner of this process of changing the constitution. So I think the involvement of the civil servants is actually, it's wrong, and that tells you that the BBI process is actually faulty from the beginning. What I have seen even out here when the chiefs were out there collecting signatures, trying to convince people, even those who went to for services in their offices, who are being asked to sign the BBI, and chiefs were given a target. You go, I don't care whether your people say yes or no, but get me signatures in whatever way you can. So it's actually wrong. But I think the position that PS Kibicho holds is a very powerful position. It's actually the position that runs the country. And there are some things, I don't know if it has happened in the Kajwang's and Kainan's constituency, that even in my constituency, and the Wasingishu County and many other counties, there have been new divisions have been created. There have been new divisions created. The counties, I don't know, they're called ACCs these days, have been posted without the involvement of the sitting leaders, especially members of parliament and MCAs and the governors. We were just told it was done through the chiefs and the village elders. So I don't know, it is something that is of great concern, because if you are interfering with boundaries, administrative boundaries within a constituency, logic and honestly and the gentlemanly thing to do is at least involve the leadership of that area, so that because it is my area, I am the representative of the people.
Okay.
And I know in one incident in my constituency, they wanted to, there is a farm called Segero Farm, which was being split into two. Some of you will be administered from this new division, and you remain in this new division. And those people who bought that farm, you know how we used to move in. We used to buy farms as a community, as a clan or something. So they have refused to be separated. So we have those issues that we really want the provincial administration to look into. As of the problems that, or rather what Kibicho has done and not done, I don't want to comment on it, but one thing I know is that at the time Orengo speaks, then there's something very grave that has happened, and I think they'll sort out their matters quietly as they did the handshake. That will not give us a problem.
Well, clearly from all that conversation, it appears that there are no specific allegations or charges against the principal secretary.
But I think there is one point I think my friend Kostan actually should count himself lucky. That the issue of bringing the services closer to the people, if he's getting more divisions and more locations, this is something that actually many other leaders actually have been struggling actually to get in their constituency. So I thought, Caleb, you should count yourself lucky that you are getting more divisions. Some of us have really been struggling to have more divisions in our backyard, and it has been a bit difficult. So I think generally, let's say this. I remember in 2010 when we made a conscious decision to retain the current provisional structure under the National Government Coordination Act, then bill, there was a debate. A big group, the political group within the country and then never wanted anything to do with provincial administration at the national level.
Right.
That debate will continue as long as we have somebody in that particular office. So I think I entirely agree with you. Where there are political issues, let's sort them out in a civil manner.
Right.
Let's not use the civil servants as a punching bag just to sort out a petty day-to-day political difference. And I think that will only discourage them. That will only make them go wrong, become rogue, and do things that are inconsistent actually with their mandate. So my appeal to the political class is, let's leave the technocrats who are out to exercise their mandate and deal with political issues as politicians at all levels.
Okay.
And we have the levels.
All right, Honorable Kenan, but others will say that let the civil servants or technocrats leave politics to politicians. All of them are allegations. We don't know what the truth is, but as soon as we can find it, we'll be able to bring it to you. We've been joined by one Dan Manzo, Member of Parliament for Makueni constituency. He'll be joining the conversation in the next phase because we need to take a short break. When you return, we'll be talking about the COVID-19 containment. Of course, you know that the cases are still rising. 113,000 infections so far reported in the country, including several political leaders have fallen victim to this virus. Some have lost the battle, some have recovered, including Raila Odinga, who is now recuperating from home. We'll be looking at that and what impact this will have on the political conversations in the country after the break. Switch on your video. When you got the bite, eh?
Na hii mambo ya mikutano kutoka leo tumesema yamezimwa kwa muda wa siku 30 days. Tumefunga. Na hiyo ina apply kutoka kwangu kama rais mpaka kwa MCA kule chini. Na yeyote, na tumetoa hiyo kama amri, na tumekubaliana na wenzangu hapa ya kwamba yule ambaye atadhubutu kuvunja hiyo sheria, awe ni nani ama ni nani, ndio nasema mpaka mimi mwenyewe, awe ni nani ama ni nani, atashughulikiwa kulingana na sheria za taifa letu la Kenya.
All right, and that is the warning from the president. He spoke on Friday as he was announcing the new measures to be followed for the next 60 days. And despite extending some of the measures for 2 months, the political gatherings have been banned for 30 days. But Honorable Dan Manzo, Member of Parliament for Makueni constituency, of course, it's not the first time you're having a ban on political gatherings. It was first done as soon as COVID-19 began, but then again it was reinstated on November 4th for a period of 60 days, then extended at the start of the year for another 60 days. But you've been seeing a lot of meetings. I don't know whether you've taken part in some of them. Do you think that this ban now, with that statement from the president, is going to hold?
I think this time around it should hold, because politicians are responsible for the current surge of coronavirus, and it is very, very serious. Now that schools are open, and in fact, one of the most scary things to a parent now is to get a phone call from school that your child is unwell. Collect the child. You are aware right now the ICUs and where you can be able to treat a COVID-19 patient are full. So there is every need. If you look at the recent political activities, there have been a lot of rallies, and in those rallies, even the politicians themselves are not wearing masks. They are surrounded by people wearing masks, and you can see now where we are in terms of the numbers of COVID-19, and it has even gone deeper into the villages. So I think the political class now must lead by example, making sure that these rallies are limited to the numbers given. In fact, there are by-elections going on. Like, you know, this week we are going to have election in Machakos. We have stopped the rallies in Machakos, and the candidates is just moving around with minimum people, just to make sure that we really save people from COVID-19. So I think serious action must be taken now to any politician found. If the senator for Nairobi would be taken to court and charged, I think anyone should face the same thing if they are found breaking the COVID-19 regulations. This is very, very serious. Health is important. COVID-19 is with us for quite some time. So the more you control crowds, the more you control the spread of COVID-19.
And Honorable Caleb Kositanyi, because again, the ban has been on since November 4th, but I've seen you take part in several political gatherings, addressing crowds that have gathered, not necessarily observing the COVID-19 protocols. Why did you do this, and what changes now in the 30 days of the new or the extended ban?
Well, I think I don't know why you're singling me out for having attended function. I think all politicians have attended various functions, led by even the president. And, well, that's okay. But I think now we need to get serious on observing the protocols that have been given. And it's especially with this third wave that is there. I have one or two issues there, Sam. One is the way the president, the facial expression when the president was addressing the nation, he is visibly so annoyed. I don't think that tone should be coming from the president, especially when addressing a national pandemic or rather a global pandemic. The president should be more of a toned down on whatever had made him angry. I don't know whether it is...
Are we discussing?
Honorable Kositanyi, why do you say he was annoyed? How did you read that? Well, we appear to have lost Caleb Kositanyi as he prepares to rejoin. Let me take it to Senator Kajong first, because Senator, also, I've seen you in some meetings, and yesterday, is it yesterday or the day before, you were speaking about the vaccination drive that should have started with the political leaders going all the way to the senators. But I've also seen you at meetings, I believe, and why would you do this, and what changes now so that you're able to hit this ban, but also continue with the message that you want to give to your people?
We've spoken about the vaccine, which offers a lot of hope to Kenyans. The only thing that then discourages Kenyans is when they see their political leaders not being keen on taking the same vaccine. In other countries, the leadership has been in the front line so as to inspire confidence in the people. You will be surprised at the perceptions here at the grassroots. In Nairobi, people who have been taking yellow fever vaccines, people who've been taking flu vaccines, have got no problem taking another vaccine. But here at the grassroots, they are very entrenched views. Some of them are religious, some of them are cultural around vaccinations. So we need to do a lot more of public education on the efficacy of this vaccine. Mm-hmm. And part of that, what the people are saying, is that they need to see the political leadership leading by example. The vaccine should offer hope. And one of the things the president talked about in his address was the state of the economy. Our economy, according to the official statistics, barely grew. But the president says that we never went into a recession. But you see, those are government statistics. If you talk to people who can look at these numbers objectively, mm-hmm. you'll realize that this economy has contracted. Public orders, banning of political meetings, etc., are things that have been with us for the last 1 year, and we have enforced them very, very well. But I would have loved the conversation now to move to the point where we now have a vaccine. What is a plan for distribution of that vaccine so that Kenyans can come out with confidence and continue with their economic activities? The solution to the pandemic is not to lock people up in their houses. The solution is to ensure that even as the pandemic continues, our people are engaged in safe ways. Countries like Britain have been successful in vaccinating a very large proportion of the population. Why can't the conversation in Kenya, beside BBI, be what is a strategy for ensuring a vaccine coverage for all Kenyans? Because with this third wave, and recall we are looking at the budget policy statement that assumes that we are going to have a post-COVID recovery. There's nothing like a post-COVID recovery because COVID is still with us. My view, Sam, is that I would have wished the president in his address to lay more emphasis on vaccination because that is the only way of ensuring that we fortify the masses against this disease. And of course, there have been a lot of issues around the vaccines that Kenya has adopted. In other countries, you find that there are rejections, there are mutations on the virus. I think that the president's message should be a message of hope. And that hope is not just to continue locking Kenyans up, because that also causes, beside the economic hardships, causes a lot of mental health problems, such that we'll be moving away from COVID and viruses and going into mental situations where people are not able even to live together within families because of the claustrophobia and because of getting locked up. Can we have a coherent plan for vaccination and coverage for all Kenyans so that Kenyans can continue doing their business in an environment of security and in an environment where they know that even if the virus will attack them, they've got some protection and immunity against it.
But Senator Kajwang, in the spirit of accountability, there's a question I asked you that you haven't responded to because you've taken part in some of those political gatherings. Did you have a personal struggle deciding between following a pronouncement of the president that is meant for public health safety and your agenda politically to go ahead and do all the meetings and pass the message that you want to pass out there? Did you struggle with that?
I don't believe that the solution to this pandemic, and let me repeat it, I don't believe the solution is to lock people up. I believe that there has to be some limited amount of normal life going on. And that is why we reopened restaurants, we reopened certain sectors of the economy, just to ensure that we keep moving. And even with the political class, we have seen a presidential election in the United States in the midst of a pandemic. We have seen elections in Uganda, we've seen elections in Rwanda. Life has to continue, but we continue that life by taking certain precautions. Of course, we will go into these political rallies and funerals all masked up. You would wish that it would be 100% coverage, but it is not always the case. I think, yes, we can do better. We can reduce the numbers in our meetings, but I do not believe that the solution, and at this point, 1 year down the line, because it's almost exactly 1 year down the line, I don't think that the message should be we continue locking people in their houses. Let's go on with our lives, but with caution. But that comfort that we can go on with our lives can only be there if the government has a coherent plan for vaccination of the masses, not just 1 million vaccines.
And of course, Honorable Kenan, there are various concerns about the vaccination. It's a new thing that people don't know what it's going to do to them. There are concerns about the safety. There's some countries, especially in the western part of the world, who are withdrawing the vaccine, saying that it's having some effects on their population. So we still don't know so much. But what do you think, as we continue to fight this pandemic? They say that the vaccination is a new weapon in this fight. How do we balance all this interest while at the same time trying to be as normal lives as possible in such a pandemic?
I think before I respond to that particular question, I think let's accept the realities. The realities are, first, Kenya is a democratic state. And the key actors in our democracy are politicians. Politicians have been accused of being the super spreaders. Those are the realities. The second other issue is this COVID crisis is here with us. We can only predict. We're only now moving from the known to the unknown. The known is we have this COVID crisis with us. The unknown is we do not know how long this crisis is likely to persist. So going back to what the Honorable Caleb Kostani, I think it is strong, and that's why I wanted to say to the president under the current constitutional structure, there are many sources of law. And presidential pronouncement constitutes one of the sources of law where there's a lacuna or where there is void actually in our law. And therefore what the president did, whether he will have done through an executive order or this, constitutes one of the sources of law. And therefore it is wrong at this stage to discuss the body language or the demeanor or anything else of the president. What is important to us is the message. And therefore that I totally disagree. We are not discussing here the body language or the demeanor of the president, and therefore that should not be part of our discussion here. Now coming back to what you have said, there's always been politics and debate about the use of vaccinations all over, not only on COVID, but generally the use of vaccinations all over the world, on vaccination of smallpox, and many other vaccinations that have been there since time immemorial. And therefore right now, because of the crisis, the magnitude of the crisis, there are issues, whether political, whether perceptual, on the application. Even in America, the most developed country in the world, there is politics surrounding the use of vaccination. The other day, the governor of Texas went and made an arbitrary statement that was contrary to what the federal government was trying to do. A number of other states are likely to do. Today, as we speak, the Italian government actually is going to have the second or third lockdown actually in the country, 70%. So because of the unpredictability of this COVID strain, you also expect government actually to be always, going around the same unpredictability of this particular crisis and come up with policies that are tailor-made to reduce the risks. And therefore, the issue of vaccination right now, it's here with us. And I believe this is something that has been tried, has been tested, has been approved by some of the best medical experts. And my appeal to the Kenyans is, let's not bring in politics. I know we are suspicious. I know we are not sure of the content of the vaccine. And I'll say there is no medicine that is 100% guaranteed. These are all products of human beings, and therefore you expect, that's why if you take Panadol, you are told, take Panadol as a painkiller, but it's likely to come with the following risks.
Side effects.
Side effects. So my appeal to, let's not politicize. This is a very important product. Let's take, especially our health, our frontline health workers. Of course, countries, depending on the channel, some particular countries in particular, Denmark and other countries have had an issue with this, but the circumstances may not be applicable actually to the Kenyan scenario. India, which has produced this actually, which has almost a population of 1 billion people, has not complained, and many other countries have not complained. Over 186 countries actually have either direct or indirect access to this. So my appeal to Kenyans is, let's not politicize this vaccination process. Let the frontline health workers go for this, and other people who are directly in contact with day-to-day activities of the COVID victims. And I believe ultimately it is the desire of the government of Kenya to make sure every Kenyan gets vaccinated.
All right. There's something I want us to listen to. That is some conversation that was going on when Senator Moses Kajong was speaking from his county. Let's listen to that about some of the voices on the vaccination program going on at the moment. We understand that over 9,000 healthcare workers have already been vaccinated.
To take the corona vaccine in Kenya should be the President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, followed by William Samoei Ruto, followed by all the 47 governors, followed by Moses Kajwang and all the 47 senators.
Sijatungwa kwa sababu wanaanza kwa wale madaktari.
Wakubwa wenye wanatembea kwa matanga wakitaka kura, wachiweka hadharani, watungwe chanjo tukiona.
Lakini ya kudunga sindano hatujaambiwa wako tuende hospitali tushuhudie madaktari wakitu. Sasa hatujui hata kama walidungwa.
All right, so those are just some of the concerns. And Honorable Manzo, so yes. The president was asked the question who was going to get vaccinated, and he said that he'll wait on the advice of his health experts or medical experts, who, if they advise that he gets that vaccination, he was going to get it. We've seen some governors and even some senior public servants getting the dose. What do you think should be the thing? Because here there is science, there's also what they are calling the prioritization. But then again, unfortunately, there's the politics of vaccines. What should be, in your view,
First, I think the leaders should take it by example, so that, you know, if the people of Makueni see that have been vaccinated, they will want also to follow because of taking the risk. What happens is that there are conditions before one is vaccinated, like, for example, you must be checked whether you have certain allergies, and then it must be confirmed that you are not infected already. So that if you're already infected, then you have to heal first, and then you get the vaccination. So I think the Ministry of Health should first educate Kenyans on what should be done and what should not be done, so that a Kenyan who is already unwell should not go for the vaccination because it will not become worse. And that issue of certain allergies, you know, in some of the vaccination cases, there were issues, and which is very normal. So I think the leaders should take it first, so that they show the other Kenyans this is the way to go. If I have taken the risk, then the people of Makueni will not think that you know, something is going to go wrong with them. So I'm also challenging the president, because you know, the health of the president is very, very important. Is the one holding the nation. So as soon as possible, I think he should lead, followed by the party leaders, Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, Honorable Raila Odinga. All of us are exposed because we are constantly with the crowd. The nature of the president is that he's going to interact with the people, including his senior staff, who should also, you know, who are near him and should also be vaccinated. And I think if the leadership takes by example, then it is easier to take this vaccination to the rest of Kenyans. Okay. Everyone cannot be vaccinated overnight. Even the doses are not ready for everybody in the world overnight. But because we are going to have coronavirus for a long time, just like flu and other viruses, then it is important to have every Kenyan vaccinated. It's not a cure, but it helps your body fight the virus better wherever it catches up with you. But I believe one day this virus will be over. Remember, it started with one person and you end with one person. So there should be a day in the world we register 0 case of COVID. And I think from that day, that's the time the world will be safe. So I'm challenging leaders, including myself, who will be the first one to show Kenyans by example. They're like the President of America, Joe Biden. He took the vaccination while everybody was watching on CNN and everywhere. So I believe that's a good challenge for his countrymen and women.
Right, and of course, different world leaders have been taking the vaccine. In Kenya, we've seen a few political leaders taking it, and unfortunately, the dressing is becoming interesting. So we're being advised that if you're a man, you need to wear your vest before you can go for the vaccine. But of course, there's no expert here on set to talk about medical issues as well as the vaccination issues. We'll continue to look for information for you, but it was important to get a voice from the political leaders. I want us to, because you said that you're exposed and it's likely that you're going to catch the virus or you stand at risk. One of them, that is former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, has already tested positive. He has been in hospital for a few days and was discharged yesterday to go and recuperate from home. There he is. We can listen into that video.
Though I'm still in isolation, so at least I can see the nature.
You're like a leper.
Yeah. I come from a leper island.
It's good to have you back, Dad.
Thank you.
It's good to have you back.
This is good.
Yeah, stretch those knees. Looking good.
Huh?
You're back home.
Right. That is
Yes.
that is Raila Odinga there trying to do some bit of stretching after he says that he's happy to be home. He's feeling great and looking forward to his recovery. And Honorable Kajwang, so looking at this, obviously with COVID-19, you have to, once you test positive, you have to isolate. It blocks you from the normal operations of your daily affairs. And obviously, it's going to affect how we continue the political discourse in this country. So what do you suggest moving forward needs to be done? Because, for instance, this week there's a by-election in Machakos County. IEBC already came up with measures that are to be observed at polling stations, but recently witnessed some chaotic scenes in parts of Western Kenya. So what do you think must change if you're to continue with, quote-unquote, the normal lives at a time the pandemic is even hitting some of our senior political leaders?
Definitely greater responsibility, greater personal responsibility, greater collective responsibility. I cannot argue against that. And I think that we politicians, we must...
Well, we appear to have lost Senator Kajwang. Do we have Caleb Kositanyi? Right, Caleb Kositanyi, the same question. So, of course, the political class has lost a few members to COVID-19. And all this is affecting more people. What, in your view, needs to change, and how does it affect the political discourse that you continue to have?
Well, I think, Sam, this is where we need to have the provincial administration swing into real action. The chiefs are very effective in enforcing, should be very effective in enforcing the regulations. Limiting the number of people going to funerals, I don't think will work, because we have...
Well, unfortunately, we
need to do is actually ensure that people, ensure that people put on their masks. Because I've seen most people have their masks, but they put it down below their neck. They're wearing it as if it's a necklace or some form of dress code. So what we actually need to insist, even us as members of the political leaders, is that we should have our masks on at all times, and insist that nobody should be at a function without being properly masked. Because I think I want to agree with what Senator Kajwang said there, that our economy is too fragile, too weak to have us continue with this lockdown. What we need is serious enforcement of the regulations, and let Kenyans go about their lives, their day-to-day activities. And of course, about the vaccine, I think as leaders, we need to be, you know, when we were during Moi's time, we used to hear Moi was farmer number one, yet we are all many farmers. So I think also that our president should be in the front line in taking the vaccine, so that it can build confidence in the people of this nation, so that they may also take the vaccine. And we need an explanation. Once you take the vaccine, are you now completely safe from COVID-19? I'm told no, you need to continue putting on your masks. Of course, any vaccination will always have side effects, and we should not be too worried about that. So we really need a clear explanation on this. But I think what we actually need to do is for the provincial administration.
Well, unfortunately, having challenges with the connection for Caleb Kositanyi and Senator Kajwang. As we correct that, I want us to now make progress to talk about the state of politics. We'll be listening to one of the voices of some leaders that were in Machakos drumming up support for their candidate. But as we do so, this week, Machakos County goes to election. Do you have Kalonzo Musalemo Davadi? Let's listen to them first as we dive into this.
Kupiga kura waende watoe furugu katika polling station, alafu walete masanduku ambayo tayari wamepiga kura. Kwa hivyo tunatoa onyo kwa IEBC na wale ambao wanahusika wajue tutawashika.
Mimi Mheshimiwa Katuku ni kura tu nimeomba, na watu wamekubali, watanipigia kura, hakuna wizi tunapanga. Ama vinamna gani? Na wao wenyewe ndio wameambia TSC ikataza walimu kusimamia kura.
Kumekuwa na porojo katika Kenya hii.
ati kuna jamaa ati wheelbarrow imeshika kila pahali. Mimi nataka niwaambie wheelbarrow ni kama ile wanaita balloon. Ukiweka pumzi kwa balloon, utachukua tu needle, amiba tu, na udunge tap, ninafanya nini? Inafanya nini? Inapasuka, sivyo?
Na waomba kule Kabuchai tumepita, tumeweka kando. Matungu tumepita, tumeweka kando. Sasa hii ni ya tatu na ni mtihani kwenu. Either you uplift and raise Kalonzo to amazing grace or disgrace him. I have no doubt mutamraise to amazing grace. Na sisi tuna
All right, so the by-election is this Thursday in Machakos after the death of Senator Boniface Kabaka, and there appears to be that alliance. And let me begin with you, Honorable Kenan, because when the by-elections in Matungu and Kabuchai were happening, the four leaders, that is Kalonzo Musyoka, Moses Wetangula, there was Musalia Mudavadi and Gideon Moi, who were seen to be working together. They actually delivered those two seats, one for Fort Kenya and the other one for ANC. Do you think Machakos by-election will be defining in any way in the national politics, or is it just a seat for Wiper to lose?
I think that question should have gone to the Honorable Mwanzo, but I think let me say this. Politics is dynamic. And right now, because of three things actually, let me say, because of the succession politics, because of the handshake and the BBI, there is an attempt by different political groups actually to create some sort of a national niche, political niche for themselves. And therefore what happened recently in Western Kenya adds to the momentum in the realization of the formation of the new groupings with an intent actually to have a position where they can easily influence and inform the Kenyan national public. And therefore, if the issue of Machakos adds actually to that, the thinking of that particular grouping, certainly it will add to their momentum and by extension give them a niche where they can easily inform, influence, and contribute to the national political discourse which is going on right now. So I will say that because Machakos is a very critical county, whoever wins, in particular, if Wiper wins, I think that will add to the momentum that brings together Musalia Mudavadi, Kalonzo Musyoka, Wetangula, and other groupings that are actually determined right now to create a force that will have some sort of an influence actually in our politics. But having said this, we need also to be realistic on our national politics. It's basically tribal, it's regional, and therefore that is an area where we could easily say is a Wiper zone. So a defeat for Wiper will be a serious innovation on what they stand for. Because each party has a particular base, a particular political position where they say this is our base. And this is consistent actually with the international policy. It's not something that, in our case, we may say it's tribal. But in other jurisdictions, we will say it's driven by party policies or party position on certain particular, whether economics, whether industrial, whether it's other aspects of the economic activity of that particular community. So whoever wins, a win for Wiper, I will say this, adds a lot of value to the thinking of that particular group. A loss will obviously negate and it will be a puncher to what they are trying to do right now. So that's the way. Equally, if UDA actually wins, it will also add to the narrative that they are attempting to create, that the UDA is now the new kid of the block, and they are attempting now to reach out to areas where the new party actually was not known. Equally, the party for the governor, what is it called? Maendeleo Chapchap. Well, Mutua is also trying to make sure that he keeps that particular county, which has been under his governorship for the last, under that particular party. So I think it's a critical by-election. Okay. It's a critical, taking into account the population, taking into account the proximity of Machakos actually to Nairobi, taking into account the dynamics of the Kenyan communities and the face of Kenya. So therefore, it's our prayer that the people of Machakos will make an informed decision that will add to the well-being of the people of Machakos and ensure that they play a very important role, not in the politics of today, in the by-election, but the politics of 2022 and the years to come.
And Honorable Manzo, obviously, it's a seat that has been in the hands of Wiper Party since 2013, when Senator Johnston Muthama was elected. He didn't contest in 2017, but Boniface Kabaka, who had been in Chama cha Uzalendo, shifted to Wiper and got the seat. And now Agnes Kavindu, that time was in Jubilee. Now she's not in Jubilee, she's in Wiper. Are you afraid? What are the chances for Wiper in that?
First of all, the polling so far, you know, the polls show that Kavindu has a 90% win. Unlike, it would be very unlikely that Wiper
polls
is
by
going
who?
to common thingy there, and polls by ourselves.
You see, when you statistically put at 90%,
yes, she's
with a lot of confidence
she's really
level.
top, and I can assure you, she's not a candidate to push around. She's a candidate who, by herself, impresses the people and has been around and has been very active. The only fear is if there is mischief, political mischief, theft, you know, and things like that. And that's why we've been saying that, first of all, the clerks should not be officers of the county, as we have seen before. You know, that particular matter went up to Supreme Court, that indeed officers of the county, employees of the county government, last time in Machakos were largely the poly clerks, which was a serious misnomer. And I hope that's not going to be repeated. Other than mischief, I mean, Wiper is winning this seat, so we are hoping that no one is going to try to steal. I'm even surprised Honorable Katuku is wearing the Wiper colors. If you see the colors he was having yesterday in the image we've just shown, he was wearing Wiper colors. So it means even Katuku himself is Wiper. He should just surrender to Kavindu in a few days and Machakos takes. And remember,
we know that he's a candidate in this election under the Maendeleo Chap-Chap. Whether he has been in Wiper before or not might be material here. But the question I'm asking is about that, because you see your party leader, Kalonzo Musyoka, is claiming that they are raising rigging allegations. Yes. What strength do you have in that at a time that you're enjoying the support of even the Jubilee Party and I guess even ODM?
Well, you know, recently there was a by-election of a ward in Makueni, place called Kitisa Kithuki, and the Wiper won with 90% of the vote, and that spirit is also in Machakos. So unless there is rigging, and we know elections are, there are many machinations which happen in elections. Really, the people of Machakos are geared, and we have to encourage Kenyans, and I'm encouraging the people from Machakos, each one of them to be watchful. Any move, you know, to have a ballot box or papers which are not, you know, the normal ones, or any action which is not normal should be reported and even filmed at the earliest time possible. So it should be the responsibility of all Kenyans in Machakos to guard the vote and to make sure that...
Is this suspicion founded on any evidence or trends that you've seen?
It is founded on what happened in the previous election in Machakos. Remember, between Wavinya and Mutua, the poly clerks, and you know, the people who preside over an election are very important. Largely came from the county government of Machakos. I believe this time around IBC has not fallen in the same trap to allow largely poly clerks from the county government of Machakos to, you know, to participate in the election, because obviously the employees of Governor Mutua, who is now as a candidate in the name of Katuku. So I am very sure Kenyans who know Mutua very well in Machakos, and that sort of trick. We are going to be watchful, and we are warning Mutua in advance. We will not accept, you know, any game of that sort. So, and I'm encouraging people to come out in large numbers, because, you know, by-elections have this issue of low turnout.
Right.
So that they come out in large numbers and express themselves and vote for the Wiper candidate.
Right. Caleb Kositanyi, I believe now you're back and able to speak to us. What do you think this election would mean? Because one Honorable Kenan says that if Wiper loses this seat, then it will really be denting on their national image. Do you think it holds any consequence? Yes, you have a candidate there, but excuse me, does it hold any consequence in the national politics?
Well, I think, first of all, it is sad to see a clip of Musalia Mudavadi and Wetangula celebrating the by-elections, the results of the by-election in Matungu and Kabuchai, which they clearly know was marred by a lot of violence led by politicians themselves. We saw Senator Malala and we saw the MP for Kimilili actually moving around with goons. So I think it is sad, and I hope the same does not happen in Machakos. The significance of this by-election is actually very important to everybody. One, it will entrench politics of regionalism and tribalism, as Kainan put it, if Wiper wins. If Wiper loses, then it has opened up that Kenyans are actually moving away from having tribal kings and glorifying individuals because they come from the region, and are moving out to more national political parties. And I would be happy if Wiper would be so keen and on winning a by-election that was being held in Mount Kenya region or Coast region or in the Rift Valley or in Western. This issue of political parties now saying we will not field a candidate, we will support a candidate of this political party, that is actually killing democracy. We want parties that are like UDA, like ODM, which can field candidates anywhere across the country and actually participate and manage to garner whatever votes they can get. We want to create that competition in our political field, not this issue of parties ceding way for each other. Even a party that has zero support in that region will say, oh, we are supporting, and so on. So you saw Kano in London Ward had one vote. So I think the candidate only voted for himself. So I think it is very important that we move away from tribal politics. It's very important that we move away from tribal political parties. It is very important that we exercise democracy and have faith in IEBC. If IEBC was not an independent body, the results in Msambweni would have been different. But I think what we need now to manage and really be careful about in Machakos is the issue of violence. That is unacceptable. That is a no-go zone. We want to produce the people of Machakos County to elect a candidate in a peaceful manner. And as, of course, Dan Man was saying, we want to call on Kenyans to take by-elections seriously so that they turn out, so that we don't have a low turnout in that. But also, because it comes out at a time when people are busy working and we have this pandemic, people are trying to make ends meet, so we will understand. But let us not read too much into a tribal political party winning a seat. Let's read more in having a peaceful election and having competition from other parties like UDA.
It's interesting that you call other parties, tribal political parties, winning an election. You also make an allegation that Kanu got just one vote in the London ward in Nakuru. I have to confess here that I'm not sure whether what you're saying is true. But all the same,
very true, sir.
Senator Kajwang. No, it's okay. It's okay, Caleb Kositany. Senator Kajwang, so we've seen the four political leaders moving together. These are people, apart from Gideon Moi, you worked together in 2013. No, in 2017 and 2013, just without Musalia Mudavadi. And now they appear to be crafting a certain political formation for themselves ahead of 2022. What are you thinking? Without Raila, and of course they are saying that they would have wanted Raila to keep his word that he committed to in 2017. What are you thinking in the formation that may come out of this?
Yeah, I've had my friend and churchmate Mwanzo talk about an opinion poll they've carried out. I hope they didn't use the services of Irungu Kangata, because then they'll be serious. But I have no doubt that in Ukambani and in Eastern Province, Kalonzo Musyoka still has the heart of the people, but he has mismanaged it.
What do you mean?
Look at the Eastern counties. The governor of Machakos is not a Wiper governor. Kabaka was not a Wiper senator. Kabaka was in CCU. And look at next door in Kitui, look at even in Makueni. He's having problems with people who maybe have on his coattails to get elected. Right now, Wiper has only 2 senators out of 60. 2. Kabaka was working in cooperation with Wiper, and then there's one nominated Senator Sylvia Kasanga, a very dynamic young lady. So Wiper has only 4 out of 60. Previously, Wiper had Mombasa. Omar Hassan was a Wiper senator. And we had people like Mudama, and we even had Musila as Wiper senators. So I think Kalonzo Musyoka needs to manage the politics of Eastern better for him to convince Kenyans that he can manage the politics of the nation properly. We are seeing a lot of strife, we are seeing a lot of rebellion coming from his backyard, not necessarily from the grassroots, but from the leaders who are supposed to be working rank and file with him. A victory for Wiper in Machakos will be a local victory. To me, it will not be a national agenda. In fact, it's not like Wiper is reclaiming its seat. Wiper lost that seat to CCU, a seat that had been held by Modama, who was one of the strong people in Wiper then, people who have now left Kalonzo Musyoka. You see, you don't need my senior Wetangula to go to Machakos to campaign for a Wiper candidate. Really, the value addition is fairly low. It's just that it shows solidarity that Kalonzo Musyoka has friends. The person who needs to do the convincing in Machakos is Kalonzo Musyoka. Kabaka was a very dynamic and a very vibrant senator, and I hope that whoever gets elected in Machakos, irrespective of the political party, will be able to do half as much as Kabaka did. He was a member of my committee of devolution, which I chair, and Kabaka was a man and a half. I hope that the people of Machakos will give us a man and a half or a woman and a half to replace Senator Kabaka. But Kalonzo Musyoka must manage his politics better. He's got ground support, but he seems to be losing it when it comes to coordinating and organizing the leadership of Ukambani. I do want to wish him well, Sam, because you see he has been Raila Odinga's running mate for a long time. So even though in politics sometimes people throw words at each other, I think there's still some fondness that we on the ODM side have for Kalonzo Musyoka. If he was better organized, I don't see any reason why he should not continue to be in an alliance with him.
Wow, Senator, to continue in alliance in what arrangement? So that once again a running mate or a candidate this time?
The BBI has expanded the executive such that it is not a matter of if Caleb is president then everyone else is out on the streets. So it is possible even to have Caleb Kositany's UDA in an alliance. The only thing is that we must sign a prenuptial agreement that there shall be no corruption.
Senator Kajwang, I have asked you a specific question. You said that you see no reason why Kalonzo Musyoka should not continue working in an alliance with Raila Odinga. But for him, I remember that voice that he said, I believe it was at the Bombers of Kenya in 2017, that at the age of 63, there's nothing else he's waiting for but to be president. Only weeks or months later to become running mate of Raila Odinga. So in that alliance that you say should continue, do you see Kalonzo Musyoka as the presidential flag bearer of that alliance, where Raila Odinga is?
There will only be one president in 2022, and there will only be one prime minister in 2022. So there are enough positions to go around. What we are saying is that we in ODM, we have not closed the doors on the people we have partnered with, and we are working hard to retain our base. We are also working hard to acquire new supporters, because it's not just a matter of counting tribes in your basket. It is a matter of counting Kenyans. That is the surest way of ascending to the presidency. So we will want to ensure that the people of Eastern, the people of Mombasa, and areas where Wiper draws its support, we can be able to form a coalition which has at its heart the people, the economy, the health, pandemic, and those other things. It's really not about personalities.
Okay, you have not answered my question. So, Honorable Manzo, what do you have to say about the views of Senator Kajwang that one Kalonzo Musyoka has managed the hearts of the people? He had more seats, he has lost quite a bit, and now he's seeking to be president in 2022. What are his chances?
I don't think so. You know, from the people themselves, other than a few rebellious people, and everyone has rebellious people. Raila Odinga as Miguna as a rebellious person. So the few 4 or so people really are not the people of Lower Eastern, and I can assure you largely 99% of the Kamba nation is behind Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, and I believe he makes, we have seen the many times Raila Odinga has tried. I don't think the way forward is we are going to have coalitions in future. No single individual will be able to become president. And looking forward into coalitions, we have assisted ODM twice now, and largely so. In fact, in Makueni constituency, we voted Raila Odinga more than he was voted in Nyanza. That tells us even him, he can also support other people. And I like his spirit. He has said he has BBI is not about 2022. He's not likely to run. He's likely also to support
others. Who said that?
Yes.
He did say he's not likely to run.
Yeah. So I believe this time around, Kalonzo Musyoka stands a very good chance as a presidential candidate, whether in the new team or still working with Raila Odinga and other coalitions. We are also open.
Do you confidently think that it's possible for Kalonzo Musyoka to work with Raila Odinga where Kalonzo Musyoka is the presidential candidate?
Yes, why not? If Raila Odinga convinces his people to support Kalonzo Musyoka, they will
He just said that he does not owe anyone support, that they left the coalition because they are quote-unquote cowards.
I don't think that was final. You know, in politics, things keep on changing. But this time around, Kalonzo Musyoka will run for president.
Okay, okay. All right, and I want us to make progress as we approach our final conversation, and that is to do with the BBI and the constitutional amendments that are sponsored by the Building Bridges Initiative. And there are some voices that came from the Senate as there was public participation, not the Senate, but the Joint Parliamentary Committee of JLAC and the JLAC from the Senate that also has Human Rights Affairs. Let's listen to the leaders as they spoke about that sometime last week.
Ningewaomba wapitisha hii kitu ili mashinani wa jiko kama mimi niendelee kufaidika na wale wengine. Mimi nilikuwa nimekosa hata mahali pa kutembea niuse njugu. Lakini wakati wa sasa ninausia kila mtu njugu. Hata nyinyi mkitaka saa hii niko nazo nitawapea mnikule.
The bill is manifestly unconstitutional for various reasons and will plead with Parliament as the custodian of the people's power on legislation to reject this bill in its entirety.
Chairman, we must know whether my 5 colleagues are here in their individual capacity or on behalf of the Law Society.
I must disassociate myself as a member of Law Society from where I'm included in this memorandum.
The bill is for all practical purposes an initiative of the executive, a process hitherto unknown under the Constitution.
When some very learned people say that they don't see anything that is popular initiative in this, then I think it's more of semantics than anything else.
We should not put personal views as views of the LSK chair.
Our work as senators and members of the National Assembly is not to defend the bill, but to interrogate further and to understand and get clarity from any Kenyan who comes what their views are. We will have our say when it comes to the vote.
Right, and the public participation sessions resume tomorrow, Tuesday. But let me begin with you, Honorable Kenan, because yes, we see the presentations before those 2 committees of Parliament, and some county assemblies were able to do public participation, some for a day, some for an afternoon. Some spent more time, including Uasin Gishu, that ended up abstaining from voting for or against the bill. What is the role of public participation? At a time that you see the Law Society of Kenya making their presentation as the leaders of the LSK, but then again some of the senators are making an argument against that opinion. So what defines public participation at Parliament now?
Actually, public participation is a constitutional requirement. It's a constitutional requirement. It's not something that is done at the pleasure of a committee or the pleasure of any particular county. It's a constitutional requirement that all bills, whether constitutional or otherwise, must go through public participation. So I think that should be very clear. Secondly, the PBA process is a public initiative. Is a process that is centered first on the handshake. Because one of the principles in the handshake, there was need for national inclusivity. And therefore, what came out of that was the formation of the PBI committee, and the PBI committee ultimately came up, went around, engaged the public in all the 47 counties and came up with a bill. The bill now has gone through the county assemblies, and now is the one National Assembly. The National Assembly, in the next few days, and what they are right now, the joint committee of the Senate and the National Assembly are doing is to hear, again, because it's a constitutional requirement, from the public. Once they're done, they will file a report. The House will consider actually jointly. And that is it. And therefore, regardless of what, you see, there will always be politics. constitutional making process is a political process. It's a political process will always be, you know, there will always be all sort of allegations, counter allegations, and all sort of suggestions driven by partisan political interest. That notwithstanding, where the process is right now is we are left with two stages. One stage is for the National Assembly and the Senate in their joint sittings to pass the bill. Once that happens, now the bill is sent to IBC, and IBC now will inform the public on the referendum date. And I have no doubt in my mind where we have reached right now. And these are what happened recently in the county assemblies has proved the doubt with those who are opposed to the BPI, that the BPI process is so popular with the Kenyan public. And therefore, what remains is, as Parliament, will discharge our functions in line with the Constitution, and therefore hand over the bill to IBC, and IBC now will discharge its constitutional
Honorable Kenan, there are those that say that the popularity we saw at the county assemblies is sponsor popularity. But all the same, now that we are where we are...
No, I think that's important. You see, let's separate propaganda from the realities. The county assembly members, who are the elected representative of the people of Kenya in their respective counties, made an informed decision in their wisdom. How many counties have said no?
Are they two?
There are 2 or 3, I don't know. One abstained for obvious reasons. The other 43 plus counties made a conscious decision to support the BPI. So it's not something that one can easily say. It's not something that even the entire government. You don't look at the political dimension. Some of the counties are under different parties. Some of the counties are under Jubilee. Some of the counties are under ODM. Some of the counties are under Wiper. Some of the under KANU. So I think the national momentum right now, because people are beginning to appreciate and understand the content of the BPI bill. Once people understand, and by the way, Kenyans are highly well-informed people. So regardless of the propaganda, right now the reality has caught up with them. They have seen the bill.
Honorable Kenan, because we need to start to wind up. So there is what you're saying, but then again, there are several polls that have come out and said that majority of Kenyans are not informed about the content of the BBI. Those that have...
And that is what Parliament is doing right now.
Those that have been questioned have said that they would actually vote no. But let me...
Just get that point.
No, just a moment, Honorable Kenan. Caleb Kositanyi. So yes, unfortunately lost Kositanyi, but Honorable Manzo, let me ask you this question, because we saw that argument between the Law Society of Kenya and some members of the Law Society of Kenya who are members of Parliament. That is one Senator Mutula and one Otiende Amolo, the Member of Parliament from Rarieda.
He's also a member.
I'm also a member of the Law Society of Kenya, and I want to say...
So what should be the take-home from those sittings?
Well, you see, the chairman of the Law Society of Kenya is free to express his personal opinion, because there's no one point we met as a Law Society of Kenya and they decided about BBI. Now that the process is coming to Parliament, there will be voting, and then I want to agree that Kenyans must be given this bill so that they can read and they can make an informed choice. Finally, when the referendum is done, Kenyans will decide as Kenyans. So during public participation, you are expecting those for and those against. And it also happened in the counties. There was public participation in the counties. Some people were against, but eventually the counties voted. As Parliament, we are going to vote. I really want to appreciate what the late Senator Haji did. And if we all remember, and may the good Lord rest his soul in eternal peace, all Kenyans remember he went around the country, he went to every county, he did public participation at that level and sought ideas and put these ideas together, and this is what has come out of this bill. So if it is the same Kenyans who are with Senator Haji, I believe, and they supported him that time and gave him the ideas, I believe they are going to vote for BBI. I want to say there has been a little issue. You cannot amend a constitution, you know, everything at once.
Right.
There are still things which needs to be done in future, but largely this is a big improvement from 2010 constitution. There's definitely a big improvement. Everything is not perfect in this amendment, but I believe we have a chance in future to continue making it better.
Okay, all right. Of course, there are those that will not agree with you, especially Caleb Kositanyi and his colleagues. But Honorable Kositanyi, so looking at that, we still are not very clear on what really public participation should be and how it should be done, because whether there is public participation by parliamentary committees and whether Parliament approves or rejects this bill, it will have to go to a referendum and a national vote. So what should we be learning from a process that has been very divisive, but hey, for once, it has gotten to this point?
Well, I think we have learned a lot, but what I want to say, particularly on the comments by the president of the Law Society of Kenya, our brothers who are members of LSK are speaking from both sides of the tongue. They tell us here that the MCAs exercised the mandates that they were given by the people when they passed the BBI process in the various counties that passed it. And then they tell us here that the LSK chairman, in his presentation or presentation of a memorandum, is speaking on his own. Those are his personal views and not the collective views of members of LSK. So I think there's a lot that we are learning in terms of, and I think these are laws that we really need to tighten so that we don't have two people sitting somewhere and say, let us change the constitution, and then they sit on the country and we get to where we are at the moment. We need actually, those are laws that we really need to look at. How did we arrive at this stage that now we are discussing a change of the constitution, and yet it is not a popular initiative? It is being run by the executive. It is a result of a handshake between two people who are competing in a very competitive election. And so that we eliminate and erase all these doubts and suspicions whenever we have an issue to change the constitution. Our constitution is not perfect. There's some areas that require improvement, but we need to do it within the law such that it is a popular initiative initiated by the citizens of this country, so that it is not an initiative of leaders, and that is where we create suspicion in the process.
Right, and Senator Kajwang, you'll have the final word here, because as all this is happening, if this process goes beyond Parliament, then obviously there has to be a referendum in this country. We know of an IBC, a commission that has just 3 commissioners. They're missing 4. Nobody is doing anything to appoint new commissioners. They don't have a substantive hold of the office of the Chief Executive Officer. That recruitment appears to have stalled. What are we doing to fix what has to be fixed before we can have a process that will be termed as fair, verifiable, and credible?
The IBC that we have always cast doubts on has processed 1 or 2 by-elections. And even though Parliament passed a law that then requires the President to constitute a panel to fill the vacancies that exist, I think in terms of timing and good strategy, it makes better sense to do that after the referendum. Because if you start the process now, you might have commissioners who might need time to acclimatize, and yet there are certain constitutional timelines to the referendum. So I believe that that's a matter that can be dealt post-referendum. The BBI report initially had made certain recommendations on how the IBC should be constituted, and that was dropped at the 11th hour. And I think now it is the responsibility of Parliament to come up with finer details, finer legislation on how to deal with this matter. But it is noteworthy that a few months ago, the President assent to an amendment the IBC provided a top measure for the Constitution. Let me talk about the public participation. It is my conviction that public participation is a part of our national values and principles, such that when we have this Parliament, there cannot be any debate as to whether public participation should be conducted or not. I think we've absolutely used an excellent Parliament in the sense that we have not provided detailed guidance on how public participation should be carried out. We saw assemblies like CI that processed the bill within 1 week, and we saw other assemblies. We need to define how public participation should be done so that we avoid situations where we need just for the show. But I am aware that the legal committees of both houses are going to hold joint sittings that are going to receive submissions from the public, even though the Constitution, when an amendment is by popular initiative, it does not explicitly state that public participation. In fact, it only says that public participation shall be if amendment by parliamentary initiative. But you cannot
117, isn't it? 117. I think so. It is.
That has to happen. It can be truncated. But I believe that whatever Parliament shall process, whatever Parliament shall consider, shall still have. The only question is if the
Senator Kajwang, unfortunately, we are losing your audio. But I think I hear you clearly when you talk about the importance of public participation and what needs to be done at IEBC. And I want to thank you all for your time to have this conversation. We'll continue to do that because, yes, as the process of BBI processing continues in Parliament, there's that requirement that IEBC be ready to conduct a referendum. We'll be looking out on what is being done. But let's take a look at some of the feedback that has been sent to us via Twitter at Citizen TV Kenya. At Sam Gituku, the hashtag to use is Daybreak. And we start with, this is Engineer Lazaro. You're saying that President Kenyatta shouldn't let his lieutenants poke holes on BBI before the actual goal, which is a referendum. A combination of Mudavadi, Kalonzo, Moi are too weak to be trusted with BBI campaigns. That's what Engineer Lazaro is saying. Then Kevin, you're saying that it is interesting to see members of parliament politicizing the issue of the fuel prices, whereas they don't know they passed the formula that calculates the current fuel prices in a country that taxes itself to the economy ICU. That is Denza. Then someone else. This is Mutheki, you're saying that let's swallow our bitter pill. Politicians want a BBI that will create positions for them and leave it to citizens to fund. BBI is a very expensive document or process. Therefore, obviously the government has to collect more monies to fund it. Right. So that is Mutheki. You're tweeting us Citizen TV Kenya at Sam Gituku. The hashtag is Daybreak. I'm told that we have a few minutes to spare. That we may begin with Caleb Kositanyi. So from now here, where do you, well, Caleb Kositanyi, your final remarks on the show?
Well, my final remarks is that we actually need to be very serious about the COVID-19 protocols. And to my colleagues who are celebrating the passing of the BBI in the counties, let us not celebrate because we all know what the MCAs went through, especially the Jubilee ones, intimidation, threats, being de-whipped from their positions at all. So let us say that we are where we are now because we have actually broken the law. None other than Senator Kajwang just said that there are two in the constitution. You either have a constitution by popular initiative or by parliamentary initiative. Now we are having to go to a referendum because of an executive initiative as a result of the handshake and all. And that is why when the Speaker presented the BBI document in Parliament, he had to make a ruling as to who would be the mover of the bill because it was not a parliamentary, neither was it a popular initiative. And so we need actually to look at the loopholes in the Constitution that has gotten us where we are, so that in future we don't have to go through this process that is neither a popular initiative nor a parliamentary initiative.
Kale Kositanyi, you are to give your final remarks, not to start another conversation or debate, because you said that this is an executive initiative. There's no executive initiative under the Constitution, but all the same, Senator Kajwang, your final remarks?
I wish that we would shift the conversation to the economic benefits that accrue from the BBI. And I know that those who have accused the proponent of BBI as lacking an economic agenda, I can tell you that in the detailed report, leave alone the draft bill, there are lots of proposals for an economic revolution. The fact that in the current corona pandemic means that our economy is going to suffer even more. I would want us now to shift the conversation, the position, and from the reorganization of government that BBI proposes, and put for now into the economic proposals of BBI. You cannot separate BBI from you cannot say that let's finish BBI and start economy.
Okay.
The two are related. It is only that our messaging has not been precise enough to show Kenyans that they are very good proposals by the economy. And I think that's what I'm focused on as a politician, going to tell our people how our youths are going to get jobs in innovation.
And I think that viewer was more concerned about the cost of this process and what it will mean post-BBI. One Dan Manzo, I mean, the campaigns in Machakos close, should be tomorrow, 48 hours before the... Oh, it's actually today, 48 hours before the by-election. Yes. So your closing remarks.
Yes, my closing remarks are that first and foremost, Kenyans should remember that we have lost a lot of our sons and daughters in the medical field due to corona. We lost 60 doctors. We lost over 3,000 or so medics were affected by COVID. And the more Kenyans are careful, and the more Kenyans practice the guidelines, the more we put less pressure on our medics. And for that reason, we should really focus, even during this election period, to make sure that less Kenyans are affected more. And that's why the vaccination is important.
Okay.
But on top of that, the reason we have BBI now is to avoid a fight after elections. It is very, very expensive for a country to go into a strife. You remember after the handshake, the Kenyan shilling really stabilized against the dollar. And for tomorrow, I'm really calling upon the people, on Thursday, I'm really calling upon the people of Machakos to come out in large numbers to exercise, their right to vote. It's very, very important we have people coming out in large numbers, and I'm really wishing the Wiper candidate, Honorable Kavindu, the best, and I believe she will make it.
Okay, all right. Wish you all the best in that. Honorable Kenan, your final word?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think there are two things that we need to demystify. First of all, for those who have been struggling actually to cause national confusion, to mix the BBI process and 2022 general election, I think Kenyans have made a conscious decision through their elected representative at the county assemblies, and I think it is immoral to impute an improper motive on the over 2,000 MCAs who have made a conscious decision. It was not an executive driven. Look at the dynamics within our county assemblies. They made a conscious decision after realizing and going through the document. They made a conscious decision to support the PBA process. Secondly, look at the dynamics in our country since the advent of multipartyism in 1991. There are no two elections with similar characteristics. Look at 1992, look at 1997, look at 2002, 2007, 2013, 2017, and I can bet even 2022, the dynamics and the players and everything will be completely different. So why bog down one day? 16 months to the next general election is such a long time in politics. So I think my appeal to Kenyans is, let's pass the BPI process, the prophets of doom, and I really want to appreciate what the Honorable Manzo has said, and I want to attribute to the great work done by our late Senator, the Honorable Mohammed Yusuf Haji. He sacrificed for the people of Kenya at a very difficult time, just in the name of creating a national process that brings together the Kenyan people. So I think right now is, let's pass the PPI process because we know the truth right now. The PPI document is a good document. In 2010, let me tell you the then politics then. There was a group who wanted a pure presidential system. Another group wanted a pure parliamentary system. Another group wanted, there were these two contending groups. Now we created a third group and we said we wanted devolution. And ultimately, that was captured. Right now, the current PPI process actually ring-faces the three aspects of the current constitution: devolution, a presidential system, and an aspect of a parliamentary system. There'll be that much because we'll have a prime minister coming actually from the elected representative. Meaning somebody like me who comes from a community that has been disadvantaged for years, if the president goes to a community that's numerically strong, we expect the prime minister will come from the other regions, in particular communities like the pastoral communities. And that's why devolution has been ring-fenced, where there will be that opportunity for the pastoral community and other communities that have been marginalized over the years. So this is a good document. As the issue of the allegations that this is an executive driven, for God's sake, give us a break. This is a popular initiative. Parliament, right now, who's pushing Parliament? Let me ask this. All of us, like 4 of us actually, today panelists are parliamentarians. Do you see the involvement of the executive? We have a joint committee of the Senate and the National Assembly taking the public through the document in the name of public participation. So do we see the involvement of the executive in Parliament? It's the same way as the members of the County Assembly actually did on their own volition, led by their speakers and the House leadership, supported the bill, made a decision. So my conclusion is this: let's concentrate on the COVID pandemic right now. Let's leave 2022 politics. Let's support the recent presidential ban on all political activities so that Kenyans can also can avoid this serious pandemic, COVID crisis. And ultimately, we need a healthy nation. And that is what will keep us actually going forward. So please, let's not mix the politics of the day with our national interest. Support BBI, for better tomorrow.
All right, Honorable
Thank
Kenan,
you.
you've said that quite candidly, and that's our time here on this conversation. But you take a short break. When we return, Sporty Monday will be here. Willis Raburu and his team will be telling you why Manchester City is at the top, followed by the other Manchester, 16 points. What's the difference? Let me just check that very quickly. 7-1-57, so that's about 14 points. So after the break, stay tuned.